Now, arrays, as you're familiar with, are the structure that allows us to retrieve multiple rows of data and to use that structure to help us provide that data to the user one row at a time or looking at multiple rows at a time. Now, what you're familiar with, and in this stores example, has setting up the array as a global variable and predetermining its size, meaning how many records or how many rows of data that array can store at one time. You'll see the same thing down here with the stock array, the state array, etc. One of the enhancements to the language in Genero is to use what's called a dynamic array and simply specify that your array is dynamic instead of typing it, pre-sizing it. And what that allows you to do is to have an array that sizes automatically for you. So instead of having to worry about that array out of bounds error if you have an array that grows too large, or having to do a constant check on the size of the array, you can just simply use dynamic array and it will size the array for you. So a huge enhancement to the language. You'll find more information on using dynamic arrays in the documentation. One of the benefits or additional benefit of using a dynamic array is that when you are looking at data, or when the user is looking at data in an array, let's go ahead and rebuild this and run it. And let's see if we can just pull up a little bit of information. Here in this table here, when the user is looking at data, this would be the array associated with the items data. When they're looking at that data, you can use what's called paged display array and simply show them one page at a time. What this allows you to do is to not necessarily go and fill the array with all of the data that is part of that array, but instead only fill the array with the amount that one page, which would be the equivalent of one area that the table is showing here, fulfills. So if the user doesn't look at more of that data or doesn't choose to sort any more of that data, then the rest of that data is not necessarily needed to be retrieved. So it can be very useful for you to use paged display array. Now, the other nice thing with a paged display array is if the user stretches their screen, as I'm doing here, that page size automatically adjusts. So in terms of the code that you write for a page display array, Genero keeps track of the page size for you, so you can use the same code no matter what the user does with their screen to look at more or look at less data. So again, in the documentation, you will find more information on dynamic array as well as paged display array.